Welcome, everyone. The City Council of the City of Gun Barrel City will meet in a regular meeting in City Hall Council Chambers located at 1716 West Main Street, Gun Barrel City, Texas, on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025, at 6:30 p.m. I would now ask everyone to please rise for the invocation, and then we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this night, these citizens, these board members, and all of our city employees and first responders. Please give us wisdom, patience, and clarity as we go about our city's business. In Jesus' name we always pray. Amen. Amen. We have special guests this evening presenting our colors. Tonight, representing Scouting of America. First one is Caleb Johnson. Caleb is a freshman at Maybank High School. He's been a scout since the first grade. He's currently serving as a senior patrol leader with Troop 333 in Maybank. He's a Life Scout and is working on his Eagle rank, which is a very, very high honor. His sister, Lori Ann Johnson, is an 8th grader at Maybank Junior High. She's working on her first class rank and is currently serving as the assistant senior patrol leader with Girls Troop 2222 in Canton. We are very honored to have them post their colors. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Caleb, Gloria, thank you so much. We're honored to have you here this evening. I will now establish a quorum. We will go a roll call from my left, please.
Burns here.
Evans here.
Jacobs here.
Burson here. Foster here.
We have a quorum. Citizens Communications, we have 2 speakers this evening. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.007, members of the public may speak on any topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and no action may be taken by the council. Any response from a member of the City Council to non-agenda comments is limited to a statement of specific factual information, recitation of existing policy, or direction to staff for follow-up. Our first citizens' comments, our first individual will be Mr. Bobby Edwards. Bobby, if you'll come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Robert Edwards, or Bobby. My address is 105 Causeway Court, and we've got such good things going on here in Gun Barrel City, like the Community Center, Pier 334. We hear about them from the start, see the groundbreaking pictures, and get excited. Then the news and information seems to fade away. Projects like these, understand they take time, but we'd like to hear about them, the progress, and we'd like to stay informed. How about maybe a timeline for the Community Center on our Facebook page or website, and updates and pictures as things move along. The EDC could do the same for Pier 334. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I appreciate you. Our next speaker, Mr. White, did you wish to speak now, or do you want to wait till the item comes up? You would speak now? Okay. Gary White.
Thank you. My name is Gary White. I live at 116 The Lee Way in Gun Barrel City. We've been there since 1974. And there is a drainage ditch between my property and the neighbor, which he's at 118, which is now a vacant property. And it runs under Lee Way with the drainage pipe. It goes on up to the Hillsdale development. And anytime we have a rain situation, water comes down from the north, from both ends of Lee Way. And again, all these years, everything, a lot of water running down, and with that, a lot of dirt, debris. And over the years, that thing has built up. I've spent time and money protecting my property, and I'm concerned about the development. It's going up. I've been assured that there will not be any added water coming down through that ditch. I talked to the city engineer on Friday. He assured me that they could not add any water into that ditch other than what's normally coming down through there. How they monitor that, I don't know. And I'm concerned that once we start building and laying concrete, building houses, and of course we're talking drainage ditches, and we don't want to do the curbing or the gutter situation. And they indicate they're looking for a country atmosphere, and they mentioned that the other developments around are that same situation. Well, we got to remember that Northwood Shores was probably developed during the 60s. Tamarack, I don't know, it's probably the same area. And at that time, we didn't have running water, we had well water, we were on septic tanks. So, and I don't even know what the city or how they were involved in, controlling the drainage or whatever. Not sure they were. And I'm just concerned about what's going to happen to the drainage, and when we get a good rain situation, those ditches are going to fill up. All I can see is that water running down to my property and flooding it. And then, of course, that drainage ditch runs into Cedar Creek. And, of course, when the lake's up, Cedar Creek comes back in that drainage ditch, and everything that washes lake, lumber, trees, styrofoam, everything we have to maintain. But I'm just concerned about what's going to happen when they start building up there. And we need to make sure that we're not going to have a lot of runoff coming off that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. 6A, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If the discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Consider approving the following reports: January 28, 2025 meeting minutes, November and December 2024 EDC financials. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as is.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Burns, second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Vote for my right, please.
Foster Harris. Burson, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Evans, yes.
Burns, yes.
Motion passes. New business. 7A, a presentation of quarterly department reports, including court, police, dispatch, animal control, code enforcement, and permits and inspections. Our sponsor on this item will be none other than our city manager, Dr. Smith.
Council, I have Chief Stevens and Shannon Wiggins here tonight. I believe, Grace, sorry, Judge. I was like, wait a minute, I'm missing somebody. We'll ask Judge Wallace to go first.
Good evening. All right, the first slide here is a violation activity, which consists of cases filed from November and December of 2024 and January of this year. There was a total of 998 cases that were filed, and our average speed went down from 15.48 miles per hour to 15.36 miles per hour. You can move on. Okay, the amount of cases disposed was 813. These closed cases can stem from both previous filings or newly cases that have been filed. The court issued a total of 469 warrants. We had 283 show cause hearings. Show cause hearings are hearings that are set for individuals who have failed to comply with the court's order. And then the amount collected was $147,447.02. All right, the court kicked off our Start Fresh Avoid Arrest campaign in an effort to resolve outstanding cases. It started February 18th and will continue through March 18th. Our hope is that people can take advantage of the opportunity before the police department begins their warrant roundup. And so far, since last week, we've cleared 26 individuals who had outstanding warrants.
Good job.
All right, and move on. The court did participate in the Valentine's concert and tour. Each child was given a chance to be a judge and make a decision on a case presented before them. They were to decide if schools should be mandated to have extra recess. These children were given the opportunity to explain the reasoning behind their decisions, and most actually said they ordered no extra recess. They signed their judgment, and they were given a gavel. They were also given some crayons and a coloring book that kind of explained the process of courts. And they also remembered the Big Bad Wolf trial. All right, the court remodel as promised. This here is the before with our ghost visitors. And then you can move on to the next slide. Oh, and the after. As you can see, it's a very big difference. I feel like it's more of a modern look and more professional. And that's all. Do you have any questions?
Questions for staff?
It looks great.
Thank you.
Judge Wallace, thanks so much.
I will tell you while our chief comes up, the first day of Judge Wallace's warrant roundup, I think there were about 50 people in the lobby, and the electricity went out in the process. So the chief came up and said, I don't think Judge is going to make it. She's got about 50 people in line, and the lights just went out in the lobby. So she had quite an exciting day the first day.
Chief Stevens?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Smith, thank you for your time. We're going to start out with a little staff news. Hired another officer, Officer Schaefer, 10 years law enforcement experience. Has excelled in roles in accident reconstruction, drug recognition expert, standardized field testing for DWI. Is an Army veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan as an explosive ordnance disposal specialist. We promoted Officer Adrian Ruiz to the position of CID Detective, Criminal Investigation Division. Detective Ruiz is a U.S. Army veteran, Grant Program Manager, Incident Commander, has over 14 years as an advanced EMT. He excels at multitasking and effectively managing multiple projects and schedules at the same time. Ruiz is highly proficient in technology and is focused on efficiency. He also proposes strong public relations skills and remains composed under pressure. Officer Sarasso was promoted to Patrol Sergeant. It's one of the most admirable work ethics of the entire department. He consistently reviews department practices and suggests implementation and improvements to enhance efficiency and professionalism. Sergeant Sarasso is dedicated to the department's mission and increasing internal accountability and professionalism. We ran a couple of different recruitment programs at different academies throughout the Metroplex and also through East Texas with a hiring campaign. We have hired a few new faces that y'all will be seeing on the streets here before long, and I'll be bringing those before you at the next time that I'm presenting with y'all. Department activities, we had the Maybell Toy Drive and the Christmas Parade that I think went off excellent. Great turnout. A lot of people, a lot of volunteers. Couldn't have done it without the fire department and the city staff and everybody that came out and helped with that, and we appreciate it. 911 and dispatch. I'm not going to go through every one of these numbers, but compared to this quarter last year, citations and warnings have increased 20%. For some reason, our accidents have increased 60% despite heavier traffic enforcement. Haven't quite figured out how that's going on, because usually with the higher enforcement, our accidents usually reduce, but they didn't in this past quarter. Assaults have decreased 40%. Our property crimes have gone up about 40%. This time of year with the holidays and everything, property crimes always go up, our burglaries go up. So hopefully the next 3 months you'll see a trend where it starts coming back down a little bit. Animal control. So our numbers on our animal control, as you can see, the calls for service, for November was 31, December 56, January 52. And on our impounds, those are dogs that we've actually picked up, and you can see where we've taken to the Humane Society. For November, we took 16, December we took 10, January we took 13, so we're hitting that number, that 10 number every single month or more, or what's going. And while we're on animal control, I just want to go back and make sure y'all understand that this report is strictly related to our animal control officer. This is only what she's doing. That's not including the calls that the police department get after hours, okay? Because we wanted to separate her from us to keep track of everything that just animal control is doing. So I did pull some stats from last year, from January 1 to December 31st, just to kind of clarify that. We had 39 dog bite calls. 29 of those were actually handled by our animal control officer. 10 of those were actually handled by our police officers because she was not on duty at the time, okay? Total complaint calls was 489. 372 of those were handled by our animal control officer, and 117 of those calls were handled by police officers on days that she was not here, okay? So I just want to make sure y'all understand that the animal control report that y'all are getting is strictly related to the animal control officer. And we are answering other animal calls when she's not here. So we do provide 24-hour animal control service, okay? Our crime stats, I'm not going to go over these individually, but they're there. Our DWIs have gone up 375% from this time last year, and that is strictly due. It's not saying that we got more people driving drunk, it's just saying that we got more officers on the street now that's actually enforcing the DWI laws. Our fraud cases have seen a 200% increase, which is common this time of year during the holidays, and because remember these stats here are for November, December, and January, so it'd be through the holiday season. And our theft was up 72%. Which our theft includes Walmart, dollar stores, all of the other stuff. The overall one that I just gave you includes burglaries and everything, okay? Our arrests, again, I'm not going to go through every one of these numbers, but our controlled substance arrests are up 112%, which is, again, people out doing traffic.
Next slide, please.
Our DWIs, again, are up. This is just arrest. DWI arrests are up 250%. Our arrests on thefts are up 400%. Our warrant arrests are up 88%. And overall arrest, or total overall arrests are up 87%. Open records, October we had 46 new record requests come in. 39 of those were done were returned in 1 day. 7 of those were done within 5 days. The numbers on y'all's report there are a little bit off. I had to go back and adjust some of those today. But what they did was they added the 1 day into the 5 day, which I didn't realize at the time. That will be corrected on the next reports that come through. Because to me, those two numbers ought to add up to actually what we had. So, any questions?
Jan, could you go back to the animal control? I just want to reiterate what Chief Stevens is talking about. We had a great town hall the other evening regarding all this. I know there's been a lot of talk about the animal control and, and different stories and things going around. But unfortunately for us, we can't tell the dogs when they need to get out and when they need to run loose. So when it's outside of our animal control officers' hours of duty, the police have to do their job and help us out with all that. And I think this is where a lot of the misconception was the other night, is that our animal control officer is not really doing her job. But she is, but we can't tell the dogs to only run loose during the hours from 8 to 5. It's very hard to get a dog to do that. I think the other thing that's very discouraging for me is when you look at the amount of dogs that are going out, and then you see the amount of, excuse me, dogs that were returned to the owner. This is what we're really trying to do with this and have some accountability. So I think that when we talk about the chipping, and there's various ways to do that and do it inexpensively for all of our constituents, but I think that's a really important thing in what we're trying to do with this whole ordinance. We will have another town hall, and I will urge everyone again to come out and be a part of this. This really is an animal ordinance for our city. This shouldn't be something that all of us decide. This is for all of us. But I appreciate your efforts, Keith, and I think that was just a misconception. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew, we're doing everything we can do. But again, dogs run loose at various hours of the day, and if we had them microchipped, it's less time on her spent. Oh, this dog belongs right here. So within 10, 15 minutes, that dog goes right back, instead of her having to hunt down and look up, and it's a very costly and time-consuming job that she has. If there are any other questions for staff, I didn't mean to take up all the time.
No, I was just going to say I appreciate all the posts on Facebook and getting information out there. Just like the one dog that they just hunted down, the person who dropped off the animal, as well as the traffic reports and the warrants. So I like seeing the police out there doing what they do.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Good evening. I love following these guys up. They do such a great job. All right, mine will be short and sweet like always. Okay, so for code enforcement for the month of November, December, and January, we had a total number of 83 violations, with the majority of those being building permits required, doing work without license or no permits, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, framing. The next one would be, I can't read this stuff. What does it say? I don't know. I can't see it. I'm sorry.
Junk vehicle.
Junk vehicle. There you go. Junk vehicle. We get a lot of help with the PD on that. We send out the letters, get everything rolling, and they take care of it from there. With the total number of violations comes 217 inspections, with the majority of those being trash and debris, junk vehicle, and again, building permits. Then we move over to building inspections permits. For November, December, and January, we had 191 permits, with the majority of those, well, we had some alarm permits, building combo, and garage sale permits, along with roofing. That brought 404 inspections just for building combo, which is remodels, additions, new builds. Then we had electrical service inspections, is always right up there. That's to get power turned on to residences and buildings. And then the last one was building electrical, just rewires. And that is it. Any questions?
Ken, just one. Is that up from last year?
It's about the same. We drop off around November every year till about February. Vacation, grass isn't growing for code enforcement to work. Then vacation, nobody's building, they're finishing their projects, not starting a whole lot, during holidays. But it's starting to pick back up.
Further questions for staff? Great job as always. Thanks you, bud. Item 7B, consider and take action to adopt resolution number R-2025-001, authorizing participation in the North Central Texas Council of Governments Share Program. I will read into the record the resolution. Resolution number R-2025-001, authorizing participation in North Central Texas Council of Governments North Texas Share Program. Our sponsor on this item will be Dr. Smith, our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Texas Share Cooperative Purchasing Program is a direct outcome of municipal governments partnering together to identify common needs for public entities across and beyond the state of Texas. This specific program, there's no cost to be a member of this, but it does let us piggyback any purchase we have on the backs of much larger cities. The best example I can give you is Arlington, for example, is a big participant in this program. They go out and buy police vehicles, and they buy 25, and they come back at X amount per vehicle from Angie Chevrolet, and then we send it to Janet's Striping to have the stripes put on. If we use those same vendors, we're able to get those cars, even if we only buy 2 at the same rate. So it really is just a cooperative agreement that lets us piggyback on the back of much larger cities and get the same rate they're getting for buying much more than we buy. And in the long run, it will end up saving Gun Barrel money. This contract, along with our relationship with Civic Marketplace, will allow us to really, at our fingertips, at no cost to us, have these purchasing cooperative agreements to be able to partner on purchasing items at a less rate. There's no commitment. We just, when we find something that we need, we go out and we see if we can get it from that person. Will they asphalt is one, right? Will they deliver it to us? Will they come to Gun Barrel and do business with us? And then we are able to get that at that rate that they bid. So it's an interlocal agreement. We will execute the interlocal agreement, and then we have the purchasing power of cities much larger than us.
Council questions for Dr. Smith? If none, do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number R-2025-001, authorizing participation in the North Central Texas Council of Governments Share Program and entering into a interlocal agreement with North Central Texas Council of Governments.
Second.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. If no further questions, vote from my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes. Boss, yes.
Motion passes. 7C, consider and take action to make board appointments. Again, our sponsor on this will be Dr. Smith, our city manager.
Mayor and Council, last Thursday evening, we conducted interviews for board appointments at our special meeting. And council then met to have a quick work session to kind of talk this through. You all agreed that you would like to appoint Jerry Rodemaker to the EDC. I probably messed that up, Jerry, I'm so sorry. Annette Everett to the GBC Parks Board, and Deanne Jones to GBC Planning and Zoning Commission. When you make the motion, if you would please give the name and the board, that will help Janet. If you make a motion, if you agree with this. And then second, that will leave us just a full-time and a alternate position on our BOA. So we will have all of our boards full except our BOA, which is awesome.
Oh, are you asking for a motion?
You have a motion for approving Jerry Rodemaker to the GBC EDC board.
I'll make a motion that we accept Jerry to the board.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote from my right, please.
Boss, yes. Person, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Evans, yes.
Burns, yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Jerry. Next, do I have a motion for Annette Everett to be a part of the GBC Parks Board?
Go ahead.
I move that we appoint Annette Everett to the GBC Parks Board.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Vote from my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes.
Foster, yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations to Ms. Everett. Deanne Jones to the GBC Planning and Zoning Commission. Do I have a motion?
I move that we appoint Deanne Jones to the GBC Planning and Zoning Commission.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Evans, second.
I have a motion and a second. Vote from my right, please.
Foster, yes.
Person, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Evans, yes.
Burns, yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations to all three of them. Great candidates, by the way. 7D, consider and take action on a city council variance request from Blake Bassett on behalf of Hillsdale Development Group LP, owner-developer of the proposed Hillsdale Phase 2 subdivision to be located on TR 70 AB 59 JP Brown Survey, Henderson County CAD Property ID 210884 for variances from the city subdivision regulations. Chapter 155 regarding plat requirements, Section 155.23, Item A to F, stormwater drainage, and plat requirement 155.23, Item A to K, typical cross-section of proposed street improvements, along with associated design standards, Section 155.35 through Section 155.53, which variances will satisfy the listed Hillsdale Phase 2 preliminary plat conditions for approval when this plat was conditionally approved by City Council on January the 28th, 2025, to construct a private gated subdivision with privately owned infrastructure, including roadways and an open channel drainage system that drains into Cedar Creek Reservoir. At this time, I'd like our city planner, Brittany Lewis.
Good evening. I am presenting a variance request for the Hillsdale Phase 2 subdivision submitted by Hillsdale Development Group. This request seeks approval to deviate from certain city subdivision requirements while ensuring compliance with key safety infrastructure standards. Tonight, I'll walk you through the current ordinance requirements, the requested variances, and the impact on the city. According to Gun Barrel City Subdivision Ordinance, Section 155, developers are required to dedicate a 50-foot right-of-way for city-owned streets and infrastructure. They're also to construct a 30-foot wide paved streets with curbs and gutters, install an underground stormwater drainage system to manage runoff, provide concrete sidewalks within the right-of-way. Once constructed, the streets and drainage infrastructure, excluding sidewalks, would become city-owned and maintained. Stormwater runoff control. City regulations require that the post-development stormwater runoff cannot exceed pre-development levels to prevent flooding and erosion. Developers typically achieve this by implementing on-site detention areas to manage the excess water. Cedar Creek Reservoir discharge. Since this development is near Cedar Creek Lake, stormwater may be discharged directly into the lake with approval from Tarrant Regional Water District. While Tarrant Regional Water District cannot refuse discharge, they do have the authority over the manner of discharge to ensure environmental compliance. Fire code compliance. Streets must accommodate a 20-foot fire apparatus access road as required by the 2015 International Fire Code, Appendix D. This ensures that emergency vehicles have safe and adequate access throughout the subdivision. If this subdivision were not private, the city would be responsible for maintaining curb and guttered streets and repairing roadside ditches from vehicle damage, mowing, cleaning, and maintaining stormwater infrastructure on an ongoing basis. The increased right-of-way width, 60 foot. Unlike the standard 50-foot right-of-way, this private right-of-way will be wider but fully owned and maintained by the HOA. Modified roadway design. The 26-foot paved streets, narrower than the 30-foot, no curbs or gutters, roadside bar ditches for drainage instead of the underground stormwater systems. Walkways include following the ADA and Texas accessibility standards. Stormwater management will comply with Section 155.40, direct discharge into Cedar Creek Reservoir where possible, regulated by Tarrant Regional Water District. Fire code compliance, the 26-foot street width meets the 2015 IFC Appendix D fire apparatus access road requirements. No on-street parking due to a narrow roadway. Off-road parking may occur in the bar ditch areas. The HOA will assume full responsibility for maintenance of roads, drainage, reducing the city's financial burden. The private subdivision owned and maintained by the HOA, the city has no maintenance responsibility. All infrastructure is upkeep is handled by the HOA. Lowers the initial cost for the city, but ensures long-term financial independence for the subdivision. While a private subdivision reduces immediate cost, it also limits the city's control over maintenance and future infrastructure decisions. Hillsdale Phase 2 seeks to build a secure, attractive community that aligns with local standards and reduces the city's responsibilities. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them now. The city engineer is also here to help with any questions, and then we also have the developers here as well with a presentation.
Questions for staff?
So I'm Blake Bassett with Hillsdale City Council, Mayor, staff. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to discuss our variance request. When we initially met with council over a year ago to discuss the Hillsdale development, we discussed our vision for perfected lakeside living. Part of that plan is to have a more rural feel, kind of like all the other developments in Gun Barrel City and around Cedar Creek Lake. We are requesting a variance in the road features to allow the development to have that rural feeling. The subdivision to our north and south both possess narrower roads with roadside ditches. And we personally believe that having this infrastructure lets people relax more and gives it a much more natural feel. What we are requesting is 26-foot wide road widths. So there's actually no difference in the drivable road width than what is required by city ordinance. The reason I say that is in city ordinance, it's 30 foot with curb and gutter. So you have a 26-foot drivable space. You have 2 foot on each side for your curb and gutter. So our drivable road width is the exact same as the ordinance. We're also requesting to have a 60-foot right-of-way, which is a 10-foot wider than the city ordinance. We've asked for it to be a private subdivision where the Hillsdale HOA will provide all maintenance to the roads and roadside ditches. So we hope that you believe that this variance is reasonable and will approve it. Nothing in our variance request will be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare of individuals or injurious to other properties in the area. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Mr. Bassett? Council? If none, thank you.
Thanks.
If no further questions, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council grant a conditional approval of variance requiring all water runoff from up to 100-year flood event emanating from proposed Hillsdale development go into Cedar Creek Lake north of the existing boat ramp. No water from proposed development will enter the Northwood Shores subdivision. That's my proposal.
Mr. Foster, with as a point of order today, and I will ask us to please stick to the agenda item. These conditions we are talking about right now are only on the preliminary plat. We are strictly only dealing with street width and street drainage channels. Preliminary plats are not intended to include all of the drainage calculations or drawings. So at this time, all we're really dealing with again, is the preliminary plat that we preliminarily approved on January the 28th. We're merely speaking about the 26-foot roads with the bar ditches. All we're talking about right here.
No, I think that's an error, and the preliminary plat that we approved at the last meeting was an error because the wrong plat was presented to the council for review. So we can, City Council has every right to offer a conditional on any a variance like this, and that's it's on the table as a motion.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Evans, second.
Have a second? Vote for my left, please.
Burns, no.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, no.
Burson, yes.
False, yes.
It does not pass.
That's right.
I do want to make council aware that that is not the item on the agenda tonight that we are to discuss.
We've already stated that.
The item on the agenda tonight is the variance request that was shared by council as it relates specifically to the conditional approval of the preliminary plat. Included in this item is the updated plat. I've communicated with council on numerous occasions that the plat approved was correct. And we have updated our engineer has worked with them to update all the language. Where drainage goes, and I communicated this last night and again this morning with council via email, where drainage goes is part of the site plan process, not a part specifically of the preliminary plat process. So while that's all great, that does not address the issue that is on the agenda tonight, which is a variance request from Hillsdale specifically related to the plat requirement, section 155-23A2F, stormwater drainage, and that is the on-street drainage that is required as a submittal of your preliminary plat, and plat requirement 155-23A2K, which is the typical cross-section, which is a 50-foot wide right-of-way with closed ditch drainage. Those are the only two things that are being requested. And the only two things that are a part of our agenda item tonight.
Stormwater drainage is mentioned.
That is correct, Mr. Foster. It is mentioned, but in a sense of what is required for your preliminary plat, not for your site plan. Overall drainage for the project is considered as part of your site plan, and extensive drainage studies have been conducted, which council has not been privy to because we're not to that phase yet. By our code of ordinances, site plans go to planning and zoning for approval. But Hillsdale Development Engineer Spires has conducted extensive drainage studies, which are a part of the next step that comes to P&Z after their variances are either approved or not approved, and their preliminary plat is updated. If these variances specific to street section, typical cross-section of proposed street improvements, which includes the width of the street and the type of drainage in the street, is what we are discussing tonight. I will tell you, I think many of you have heard many of you have heard me say this, many of our audience have heard me say this. Our ordinances, as it relates to the preliminary plat, were specifically written to reduce the cost to the city, to beyond the long-term maintenance of those items. And so there is extensive maintenance required if you have bar ditches, for example, right? We have to make sure those stay open. You see us do that in all of our existing neighborhoods. We have to go out, make sure that the drainage underneath driveways stays open, and there's a cost associated with that. So when the ordinances were rewritten, they were rewritten in a way that allowed for a 30-foot wide street and enclosed drainage channels down both sides of the road. You see that at the Range, Murphy, the Cottages. They've changed names several times. Their preliminary plat came through and it was a box we checked because there were no concerns because they met those ordinances as it relates to their preliminary plat. With Hillsdale asking for something a little different, what they have agreed to do is make their streets and right-of-way, which is this issue specifically, private and take on all maintenance responsibility of said streets and right-of-ways. So the city doesn't, at the end of their development, take those back. It is part of the preliminary plat, which is why the plat is back on tonight. There were some questions about how Lot 18 played into this. All of that language has been removed. But this item is specifically related to not drainage for all the property. That has to do with the site plan and would come back as part of the site plan. This specifically has to do with drainage as it relates to the right-of-way in the typical cross-section of a proposed street improvements. Our ordinances call for a, 50-foot wide street, 30-foot wide street, 20-foot wide right-of-way with enclosed curb and gutter sidewalks. What Hillsdale is requesting is a 26-foot wide street with open drainage ditches along those streets. That is what this item on the agenda tonight is about as it relates to specifically their preliminary plat.
Can you address specifically what the stormwater drainage and plat requirements 155.23 are?
I can pull it up real quick. It'll take me a minute, but that 15523 specifically has to do with, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mundo, the preliminary plat requirements. On your preliminary plat, you are required to show with sufficient detail so that Joe doesn't get mad at me, what drainage will look like throughout the neighborhood. Once you have the site plan, then that is specific to overall neighborhood drainage. Where does that water go and at what rate? And so they wouldn't necessarily on a preliminary plat show a detention or retention pond. They would show a general layout of how that drainage would move throughout the neighborhood. With the site plan, you get the very specific, and they have hired, just like we have our own engineer, they have an engineer that's conducted an entire drainage study on this property. I have seen a copy of it. And so those then, they look at 25-year flood, 100-year flood rates, where do those go, and how does that water flow throughout the neighborhood. But that, again, is the next step, which is part of the site plan, not part of the preliminary plat.
Can we call for another motion?
I think we need to revisit this again and try to stay on task. That's why I made the point of order that I did, but we went down another path. Again, if something comes back with and there is a variance issue, it will always come back to council. But again, we've done this in the past. We need to stay on the agenda item. It says directly in there, preliminary plat conditions. We're just talking about the preliminary plat, okay? It's just the street width and the street drainage. It has nothing to do with anything else. I just want us to talk about this. Any more discussion, that's all we're going to talk about. If there's no further discussion, then we'll ask for a motion based on the agenda item we have, 7D.
Mayor, I would like to make one comment before you get a motion. It is important to understand that our current ordinances allow a development to continue drainage onto an abutting property. If you want to change our ordinance, we will have to follow the process to do that. But our current ordinance allows, and I included that in the email I sent this morning, our current ordinances allow a development, a business development, a residential development, commercial or residential, to continue draining on abutting property at the same rate. They cannot increase that rate. Now, they have very, very technical software that figures that for them and tells them, I've seen it, I've seen the site plan, it tells me what it was before, what the rate was, what the flow rate was at gallons per minute, and what it will be in the future. But again, that's all part of the site plan. So, but our ordinances today allow a developer of commercial or residential to continue to drain at the current rate onto another property. And that is what is on the site plan. I asked that question of Hillsdale, and they came in and showed me how the property current drains, where it comes out. Part of their site plan is to make improvements to the existing drainage site. But again, that comes as part of the site plan, but, you know, we ask a lot of questions about that. But we really can't waive their right to do that because that is in our current ordinances that allow them to do that. So that's a side note.
Well, can I ask a question? I was reading the deal that you sent out. It says all stormwater flying from Phase 2 subdivision that you had highlighted in here. But down there, farther on down through the deal, it says all stormwater discharge from the Phase 2 site, not including in 5A above, shall comply with section 155.40 drainage design, and it talks about stormwater discharge onto city and/or private properties shall be subject to city, to city approval.
City ordinances, correct.
Okay, so it is subject to the city council on a subject of approving any water that's being discharged by the city onto private property shall be subject to the city approval. Is that correct?
Outside of our ordinance. So outside of what the ordinance allows, yes. If when they get to the site plan phase, they are increasing the drainage onto the leeway or to any other property, right? Then, if they get to the site plan phase and they're ready to submit their site plan, just like they were with their preliminary plat, then they would come back and say, I actually think they're reducing it. These guys could probably answer that question, but I actually think they are reducing the drainage onto the leeway. But by ordinance, they do not have to. They can, as long as, if it flows at 24, as long as it continues to, I'm making Joe cringe back there. If it flows at 24, as long as it flows 24 or less with their new development, they are allowed by code to do that. So this item, their preliminary plat was specifically conditionally approved because they were not doing a 30-foot wide street, a 20-foot wide right-of-way with curb and gutter, right? So that's the reason their plat was conditionally approved. That's the way the motion was read into it, regardless of whether you agree if it was right or not, that was, and it was done, and we were able to then clean up the language. The state of Texas has really handcuffed cities by giving us 30 days, and there are a lot of things to work out sometimes in 30 days, and so there are always, and then that's why you have a final plat, because you're able to clear all that up. But the site plan is really, in our case, the construction drawings, if you will, for a commercial building. They are the civil plans that then the tree preservation ordinance and the drainage and all of the specifics about the neighborhood are mapped out in the site plan. Hopefully that answered your question.
When we make this motion, do we need to include the section numbers? Do we need to read in this entire?
Considering this was written by our engineer and approved by our attorney, I would prefer that you read it as it is, even though it's long.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
No.
Do I have a motion?
Move that.
Go ahead. I move that we take action on City Council variance request from Blake Bassett on behalf of Hillsdale Development Group LP, owner developer of the proposed Hilldale Phase 2 subdivision to be located on TR 70AB 59 JP Brown Survey, Henderson County, CAD, property ID 210884 for variance from the city subdivision regulations, Chapter 155, regarding plat requirement, Section 155.23, A2F, stormwater drainage, and plat requirement 155.23, A2K, typical cross-section of proposed street improvements along with associated design standards, Section 155.35 through Section 155.53, which variances will satisfy the listed Hillsdale Phase 2 preliminary plat conditions for approval when this plat was conditionally approved by the City Council on January the 28th of 2025 to construct a private gated subdivision with privately owned infrastructure, including roadways and an open channel drainage system that drains into the Cedar Creek Reservoir.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Jacobs, second.
I have a motion and a second. Vote from my right, please.
Foster, no.
Person, no.
Jacobs, yes.
Evans, no.
Burns, yes.
Motion doesn't pass. Moving on, economic development. 8A, consider and take action to approve turning over the defaulted Slap and Good performance agreement to a debt collector to collect the outstanding debt of $21,773.35. Our sponsor on this item will be our EDC Director, Dr. Smith.
Most of council was at our EDC meeting, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Slap and Good is currently in default on their performance agreement for the loan they received in the amount of $21,773.35. The process looking forward, the EDC met on February 11th to determine next steps. We did send a right to cure letter to Slap and Good via certified mail. Our EDC attorney did. That expired on February 17th. And tonight, we are having our council meeting to confirm the recommendation of the EDC board. The EDC was presented 3 options. The first option was to file a lawsuit. The cost to the EDC was $10,000 to $20,000. The second option is to forgive the debt and then work with our accountant to file a 1099-C for 2025, indicating a cancellation of debt that recognizes the forgiven debt as income to the business. And the third recommendation is to turn over the collection agency. It would be a contingency-based collection. The specific agency takes 30% of any collection they do. If at any point the business wants to settle, that would come back to the EDC. My recommendation would be to sign a short contract with the collection agency, give us 10 months, give us till the end of the year, let them be able to collect or not collect, and then take it back to the EDC board. If they can come up with a settlement, great. The EDC board can, decide if they want to take that settlement, if they can get the payment from them. Even better, if they're making regular payments to the collection agency, then we continue to do that. But if not, we can always, for any amount not collected, file, unless we settle, we can file a can go back real quick for me, Janet? We can file a 1099-C for 2025. The EDC recommendation was to turn over the defaulted Slap and Good performance agreement to a debt collector to collect the outstanding debt. Next slide now, please. So just a brief update about Slap and Good. They've made a total of $7,600 in payments. This business is open to the public in both Gun Barrel City and Kemp locations. They made consistent payments from October 1st of 2020 to September 3rd of 2022. They even made some extra payments in April of 22 and December of 22, but they did not make a payment in November of 2022, so that was the extra payment in December of 2022. And then they stopped making payments from January to July of 2023. They made a payment in July of 2023 and have made no payment since. Their performance agreement calls for annual compliance verifications that can include the IRS 941 returns and the TWC employee quarterly reports, but they have submitted none. We have met numerous times. I personally have met, and some of our board members have met numerous times with the business owner, and no commitments to date have been met. I did meet with the business owner just about 10 days before our last EDC meeting and told her, hey, we want to work with you, right? How can we do this? And here's what I need from you. I need a letter. I explained we would be publishing our agenda on Friday. Send me a letter, tell me what you can do, maybe make double payments, right? It is a very low payment loan. Make double payments. Help me help you get back on track and stick to the commitment that you're asking me to make. And I emailed the business owner several times that week and got absolutely zero response from the day she came in and met with me. So this business, while they have great food, I've eaten there numerous times, they are just not sticking to their agreement to get this loan repaid, and we need to get those dollars collected. So I'm asking the council to please approve what the EDC recommended.
Questions for Dr. Smith? If none, do I have a motion?
I move that we take action to approve turning over the default Slap and Good performance agreement to a debt collector to collect the outstanding debt of $21,773.35.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Vote for my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Burson, yes.
Lost, yes.
Motion passes. 8B, consider and take action to approve turning over the defaulted GBC medical performance agreement to the EDC attorney for legal proceedings to collect the outstanding debt of $50,213. Our sponsor on this, again, is our EDC Director, Dr. Smith.
So I will not rehash all of this for you. GBC Medical had a business in Gun Barrel City. That business closed in 2020. And we sent them the same right to cure letter that we sent Slap and Good. Their outstanding debt is $50,213 with the same options. The EDC did recommend turning this defaulted loan or performance agreement over to the EDC attorney for legal proceedings to collect that outstanding debt. Next slide, please, Janet. A brief update, they have made a total of $48,000 in payments. The business is no longer open. They closed in, I believe, April or May of 2020 and sold their building. They continued to make payments from November of 2016 to November of 2023 monthly. They even made extra payments during some of those months, in most of those months. They did not pay on a regular basis, though, so they didn't send us a payment every month. They might pay in April and pay twice, and then pay in June and pay twice, and pay in October and pay twice. They were making payments, but they were doubling up. So it wasn't like they were just trying to get ahead. They were making up for payments that weren't made. They made no payment between November 23 and March of 24. When I came on board, we attempted to contact them. I sent them a letter in maybe February 24, early March 24. We did receive a $1,000 payment from them. Up until the EDC considered this at their meeting, we had received no payment from them. We now have received two, and we have reached out to them and told them we will not accept this, that we are turning this over for full. They're welcome to send us or come and negotiate with us full payment of the loan, but we will be turning this over to our EDC attorney.
So you received payments like this week, or
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
So, well, one last week and one this week, but we have visited with the vendor, we have visited with the applicant or with the person that holds the loan and said, we're happy to try to settle. But, you know, what happens is they get a letter, they make one payment, we don't hear from them again. They get a letter, they make one payment. So Stephen did reach out to them and tell them this was right after the EDC meeting. Stephen did reach out to them and say, we're happy to meet with you and attempt to settle your debt with the EDC, but we will not be depositing your $1,000 check, so.
Any further questions, council? If none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we take action to approve turning this over to the defaulting GBC medical performance agreement to the EDC attorney for legal proceedings to collect the outstanding debt of $50,212.
$13.
Or $13, excuse me.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Vote for my right, please.
Lost, yes.
Burson, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Evans, yes.
Burns, yes.
Motion passes. 8C, consider and take action to approve the First Amendment to the amended and restated performance agreements for Pier 334, updating all necessary certificates of occupancy and reporting dates and quantity of reports. Again, our sponsor on this is our EDC Director, Dr. Smith.
Next slide, please, Janet. We have discussed this. Council has seen a draft of this agreement. The EDC did approve this agreement at their last meeting. This First Amendment to the agreement updates all of the dates in the contract based on changes and things that got approved in the second version that were not correct in the first. So it updates the term of the agreement from December 31st of 2022 when it was re-signed and puts it in line with the 2022 amendments. So it is a 30-year contract. It resets the certificate of occupancy date and retail restaurant to December 31st, 2026. With the amended performance agreement, for all practical purposes, we left the retail council and the developer left the retail restaurant unable to get a CO because they would not have the available parking that they needed. So when we moved the hotel and parking completion dates, he wouldn't have had the required parking spaces needed for the restaurant retail. He wouldn't have been able to, even if he had built it, he would not have been able to get a CO for it. It updates the dates of job creation and retention reporting in line with the hotel CO date that was approved with the amended performance agreement and the restaurant retail CO dates. It also updates the number of compliance reports and to 26 reports, which makes the final report in 2051. That way, currently there are 3 agreements due after the completion of the agreement, and so we made those reports in line as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dr. Smith?
Occupancy permits are for both buildings is in December of '26, correct?
December 31st of 2026, and there is a copy of the fully executed agreement by both the EDC and Pier 334, Stephen Haynes and Eve Hoppen in your packet.
Any further questions? If none, do I have a motion?
I move that we take action to approve the First Amendment to the amended and restated performance agreements for Pier 334, updating all necessary certificates of occupancy and reporting dates and quantity of reports.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Evans, second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. A vote from my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes.
Boss, yes.
Motion passes. 8D, consider and take action to approve a right-of-way dedication agreement between the Gun Barrel City Economic Development Corporation and the City of Gun Barrel City. Our EDC Director, Dr. Smith, will speak on this.
So we talked about this a couple of times. I have talked about it with the EDC. The EDC agreed back in the fall, so I was waiting on a few surveys. As many of you know, we have broken up some of the property that the piece of property used to line Luther Lane Extension, include where you see on the survey Joy for Dallas, then goes up beside the park and the lot behind the park. So we had to do some surveys. Basically, the agreement in your packet, the EDC continues to own the property, and they have given us a right-of-way agreement that turns this strip of property and ownership and all maintenance over to the city. We do currently have a road there. We should have actually probably done this, sorry, Janet, probably done this prior to building the road so that it's not a private road. It is a city street, and so the agreement that you have there is been approved by both the EDC attorney and the city attorney. It was actually drafted by the city attorney to ensure the city is protected in this transaction.
Any further discussion?
This will no way increase the cost of a Whataburger, will it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If none, then I will ask for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the right-of-way dedication agreement between the Gun Barrel City Economic Development Corporation and the City of Gun Barrel.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. A vote from my right, please.
Boss, yes.
Person, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Evans, yes.
Burns, yes.
Motion passes. On to planning and zoning. We'll now have a public hearing on a request to replat Lot 48R, Block 1 in the J.M. Bertrand Survey, Abstract 61, Henderson County, Texas, located in the Holiday Club Estates subdivision belonging to Anthony and Marie Belfast, physically located at 107 Inwood Circle, Gun Barrel City, Texas, into 5 lots, Lot 48R-1, 48R-2, 48R-3, 48R-4, and 48R-5. I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak on this? If none, I will turn it over to our city planner, Brittany Lewis.
Tonight I am presenting a replat application for 107 Inwood Circle. This slide outlines the timeline for this replat application. On January 22nd, a public hearing notice was sent to the newspaper, and notification letters were mailed to property owners within 200 feet of the property. On January the 30th, the Planning and Zoning and City Council public hearing notices were published in the newspaper, ensuring compliance with the required 15-day notice period. February the 10th, the Planning and Zoning Commission gave recommendation for approval, and tonight is the City Council meeting. As part of the replat process, property owners within 200 feet of the subject property were notified, allowing them opportunity to provide feedback or voice concerns. I sent out 30 notification letters and received no responses. This replat is being requested to adjust lot dimensions in compliance with zoning requirements while maintaining the integrity of the surrounding neighborhood. This slide presents the full picture of the proposed replat. As shown, the adjustments are designed to meet zoning requirements while ensuring compatibility with the surrounding area. The replat maintains compliance with the minimum lot area, setbacks, and other dimensional standards outlined in the R4 zoning district. This slide provides a zoomed-in view of the replat, allowing for a closer look at the specific lot adjustments. The detailed layout illustrates how the replat aligns with zoning requirements, including setbacks, lot dimensions, and overall configuration. Also note the highlighted shed on this replat is also being removed. This slide outlines the zoning requirements for single-family detached residential district, R4, which applies to this replat. Key requirements include a minimum lot area of 5,500 square feet, a minimum lot width of 55 feet, and a minimum lot depth of 90 feet. The required setbacks are 25 feet for the front yard, 5 feet for their interior side yards, and 10 feet for the rear yard. Principal structures must have a minimum floor space of 1,250 square feet with a maximum height of 35 feet. The lot coverage is limited to 50%, and a one-car garage or carport enclosed on 2 sides is required. Driveways must be at least 12 feet wide and hard surface with materials such as asphalt, concrete, brick, cobblestone, or paving stone. Accessory structures must also adhere to specific requirements, including setbacks, height limits, maximum size restrictions to ensure they remain proportional to the principal structure. These zoning standards help maintain consistency with the district and ensure that all developments align with the city's planning goals. This concludes my presentation. At this time, I welcome any questions.
Questions for staff, council?
Just a question to refresh my memory. Has this come before the council previously, or is this the first time?
This is the first time.
Okay, thank you.
Brittany, didn't it come before council to separate it? Is this the one that came before? It was 5 lots and we combined it into one, and they asked to combine it. Mr. Foster, that may be what you're asking. It was before council, I believe, in the past. Shake your head yes or no, Brittany.
I don't know of it coming before council.
Have to be if it's R, that means it has to have been replatted.
It has been replatted once. I believe it has been replatted once. It was
We have an R.
5 lots, and they turned it into 1, and now they are taking 1 and turning it back into 5. Yes, Brooke is shaking her head yes.
Brooke would probably know on that one.
Okay, if no other further discussion, we will consider and take action to approve a request to replat Lot 48R, Block 1 in the J.M. Bertrand Survey, Abstract 61, Henderson County, Texas, located in the Holiday Club Estates subdivision belonging to Anthony and Marie Belfast, physically located at 107 Inwood Circle, Gun Barrel City, Texas, into 5 lots. Lot 48R-1, 48R-2, 48R-3, 48R-4, and 48R-5. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approved the request to replat lots 48R, Block 1 in the J.M. Bertrand Survey, Abstract 61, Henderson County, Texas, located in the Holiday Club Estates subdivision belonging to Anthony and Marie Belfast, physically located at 107 Inwood Circle, Gun Barrel City, Texas, into 5 lots, Lot 48R1, 48R2, 48R3, 48R4, and 48R5.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Evans, second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Vote for my left, please.
Burns, yes.
Evans, yes.
Jacobs, yes.
Person, yes.
Walsh, yes.
Motion passes. Before we adjourn this meeting, I want to acknowledge all our distinguished guests, Roy Key with the EDC, Gary Damiano with the EDC, Keith Bond also with the EDC, Kate Weller, our Planning and Zoning Chair, Renetta Burson with Parks, Keith Stevens, our Police Officer, and Gilbert Shelby with our Parks, who is recently back from his safari. You all need to ask to see the photos. I heard they're unbelievable. And I would also like, oh, and Monica Damiano, Gary's better half, way better half.
From the Parks.
Sorry, Mike, I always save the best for last. But anyway, I want to thank them, and I also want to thank Caleb Johnson and his sister Lorianne Johnson for your leadership, and I appreciate you very much, and your presence here was greatly appreciated. You and your family should be greatly proud of yourselves, and I wish you guys all the best, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. I now find this meeting adjourned.